Atlanta, Georgia. Somewhere beneath a nondescript office building sits a vault, behind 2 feet of concrete and a code known to fewer people than have walked on the moon. There's a single sheet of paper, no armed guards stand outside it, no countries have gone to war over it, and yet for over a century, it's been treated like one of the most valuable secrets on Earth, the formula for Coca-Cola. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. The vault might be the least important thing in this entire story. In 1886, a pharmacist named John Pemberton was not a success story. He was a Confederate veteran carrying a saber wound from the Civil War. And like a lot of wounded soldiers of that era, he'd become dependent on morphine to manage the pain. Pemberton spent years trying to formulate something that could treat his own addiction. Tonics, syrups, patent medicines, anything the loosely regulated pharmaceutical market of the 1880s would allow him to sell. He wasn't trying to invent a global phenomenon. He was trying to survive, both financially and physically. What he eventually mixed together in a backyard kettle was a caramel-colored syrup flavored with coca leaf extract and cola nut. A combination that, on its own, was not remotely unique. Here's what most people don't realize. Pemberton's drink wasn't special. In the 1880s, American pharmacies were flooded with nearly identical products: coca wines, cola tonics, nerve syrups. Hundreds of small manufacturers were selling nearly the same pitch, a refreshing, mildly stimulating drink that claimed to cure everything from headaches to fatigue. Most of these companies no longer exist. You've never heard of them because they all failed. Pemberton's company was one of dozens fighting for scraps of a crowded, undifferentiated market, and it was losing. By the time he died in 1888, just 2 years after inventing the drink, he was broke and terminally ill, and he'd already sold off pieces of the formula's rights for a fraction of what they'd eventually be worth to a businessman named Asa Candler. On paper, Candler had just bought a failing product in a dying category. The syrup wasn't the asset. Everyone assumed it was. Here's the moment that actually matters, the one this entire story hinges on. Candler looked at the exact same market everyone else was drowning in and asked a completely different question. Every other tonic company was trying to win on formula, on taste, on ingredients, on claimed health benefits. Candler realized that in a market where dozens of products tasted roughly the same and made roughly the same claims, the formula was never going to be the differentiator. The real, unclaimed opportunity wasn't chemical, it was infrastructure. If he could make Coca-Cola available everywhere, recognizable instantly, and impossible to casually replace in a customer's habit, the actual contents of the bottle would stop being the point. He wasn't trying to build a better tonic. He was trying to build the only tonic anyone could get everywhere, all the time. Candler moved fast, and almost none of it involved the syrup itself. He plastered the Coca-Cola name and logo onto anything that would hold still: clocks, calendars, serving trays, matchbooks, turning the brand into visual wallpaper. In everyday American life, decades before marketing was even a formal discipline, he handed out millions of free sample coupons, essentially giving away the product to build habitual demand. Then came the move that mattered most. Instead of trying to bottle and ship the drink from a single factory, Candler licensed the right to bottle Coca-Cola to independent local businessmen all over the country who bought the syrup concentrate from him and handled distribution themselves. This turned Coca-Cola from one company into a self-replicating network of hundreds of locally invested bottling operations, all protecting the same brand. When counterfeit and copycat bottles became a problem, the company didn't respond by defending the formula. They designed the contour bottle, a shape so distinctive it could be identified by touch alone in the dark, patenting the container instead of the contents. Decades later, under new leadership, the company doubled down on the same principle during World War II, arranging for Coca-Cola to be made available to American soldiers anywhere in the world for 5 cents, embedding the brand into the emotional memory of an entire generation before those soldiers had even come home. At every stage, the winning move was never a better tasting syrup. It was making the brand omnipresent and emotionally sticky. So what about the vault? It's real. The formula genuinely is kept under tight secrecy, and the company has spent 100 years reinforcing the mythology that only a couple of people alive know the whole recipe. But here's the twist worth sitting with. Over the decades, chemists, journalists, and hobbyists have published dozens of plausible recreations of the formula, Blind taste tests conducted throughout the 20th century repeatedly showed that many consumers couldn't reliably tell Coca-Cola apart from competing colas, and in some tests actually preferred a rival's taste without knowing which was which. If the formula itself isn't what wins the loyalty, then the vault was never protecting the thing that made the company succeed. It was protecting a story. The real formula, the one that actually built a global empire, was never a mixture of syrup and carbonated water. It was distribution reaching every corner of the planet, a bottle shape you could recognize by shadow alone, and 100 years of embedding a brand into memory before anyone else thought to try. So the next time someone tells you the secret's locked in a vault in Atlanta, consider this. Maybe the real secret was never something you could put in a bottle at all. If you're still watching this video, consider subscribing to Bozz Lab.